Okay, good evening. On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the November 19th, 2024 meeting of the City of Roseville Transportation Commission. If you could please check all your personal electronic devices and make sure they are all on silent. If you would like to follow along with the agenda, they are available at the end of the staff table. If you're watching remotely, all meeting documents are available online at the city's website for the Transportation Commission. If you plan to speak tonight, please be sure to fill out a yellow speaker card located at the podium and then return it to staff. If you do speak this evening, please only address the commission from the podium. Public participation is always welcome, and your questions and comments are always noted. Laney, can you please call roll?
Sure. Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Radford?
Here.
Commissioner Probst? Commissioner Pell?
Here.
Commissioner McGeorge?
Here.
And Chair Groff.
And Commissioner McGeorge, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, I would like to open the meeting for public comment. The public comment period is a time for any member of the public who would like to address the commission on any transportation-related item that is not on the agenda. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject jurisdiction of the Transportation Commission and limit comments to 3 minutes. The Brown Act does not permit the commission to discuss or take action on issues that are not listed on the agenda. If you do come up to the podium, please state your name for the record. Does anybody from the public have any comments? Yes, sir.
I'm John Freitas, Roseville resident, 24 years, and good evening, Commission. I just, it's just a comment and an observation. I noticed along with the agenda are the schedules for the bus, and they have a date of 2018, and as a writer, the buses have a stock of schedules with the date 2022. So I don't know, maybe tonight you address why we have a 2018 dated schedule when the buses run on 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anybody else that would like to give a public comment for items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the last calendar from September 17th of 2024. Would anybody like to, any of the commissioners like to make a motion to approve the July minutes or September minutes?
to approve.
Seconded.
We have a motion to approve and a second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Sorry, seeing none, the motion is approved. The next item on the agenda is item 6.1, fiscal year 23-24 annual transportation or transit performance report. This is an action item. A vote will take place, and staff, can we have your presentation, please?
Good evening. Good evening, Commissioners. With me tonight is Rich Frost, our Transit Operations Supervisor. The item before you is the fiscal year transit annual report from fiscal year 23-24. The report covers, can you guys hear me okay? Is that good? Okay, sorry. The report covers ridership numbers, performance measures, and provides updates on some key transit-related projects. The ridership numbers and performance measures are from July 1st of 2023 until June 30th of 2024. As a reminder, Roseville offers 3 types of service. We have our Aero paratransit service. We also have our commuter and fixed route service. The first slide, let me get the slides up there. I was hoping. Oh, there you go. So next slide, there we go. Okay, so this first slide shows our total FY24 ridership figures for all 3 of our services, as well as the overall numbers in comparison to the same quarter for the previous fiscal year. And the upper right corners, you can see ridership was up over 16% compared to the previous fiscal year, which is good news. Our commuter ridership, which had been hard hit from the COVID pandemic, was up over 18%, and this was on top of a 20% increase from the previous year. So that was good news. The Aero ridership was up almost 40% from the previous year. And it should be noted that the Aero ridership of 24,000 riders this past year actually exceeds our pre-COVID ridership for that service, which was 22,000. So that's good news as well. The growth can be attributed to the launch of our microtransit service, the new Aero service that we launched in March of 23, and it has exceeded expectations. All three types of service were up this past fiscal year compared to the previous year. So while ridership was up last year, and we're very happy about that, we still have a ways to go to get to our pre-COVID levels. I show this slide. I've showed it the last couple years, but it is a good comparison of where we were pre-COVID. The first two bars from left to right were our pre-COVID ridership numbers. And then the third bar was our first quarter in which COVID impacted ridership. So as you can see, ridership has slowly increased, but it's still well below our pre-COVID levels. And I've also mentioned in the past that this type of graph is representative of many transit agencies. So it's not just Roseville, but the Roseville ridership is currently almost 70% of our pre-COVID levels. So while there are a number of service quality measurements that are provided in your report, I wanted to just briefly touch on two of the measurements tonight. This current slide deals with our fare box recovery. The fare box recovery is the percentage of transit operating expenses that are covered by revenues from transit fares, advertising, and other payments from other government entities that support transit services. California transit agencies typically have a fare box ratio of 15%. Under normal circumstances, if we were below that 15%, we'd be required to either adjust our services to increase fare collection or reduce operational costs to meet that minimum standard. However, in lieu of the COVID pandemic, that ratio has been waived through the 26-27 season due to low ridership throughout the state. So with this in mind, you'll see that Roseville's combined fare box recovery ratio was 9.17%, which was up from 8.44 from the last fiscal year. And once again, this low percentage is something many transit agencies are experiencing throughout the country. One other quality measurement I just want to quickly mention was Roseville Transit's on-time performance. This measurement is one of the most important measurements we review. From a rider's perspective, this is also one of the most important items when it comes to riding transit. All three services are slightly below the ranges that were established in our short-range transit plan, and they're also a little bit lower than our 2023 numbers. In discussing this with our bus operator, one of the things they mentioned was the increased traffic levels out there that it resulted in slower times. So while providing transit service is a key component to what we do, at this point I'm going to hand it off to Rich to highlight a few of our transit-related projects that we've been working on this past year.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, Commission. One of the most significant projects taking place within the Roseville Transit system currently is our comprehensive operational analysis. You'll hear much more about this as the night goes on. As a reminder, the COA will analyze all aspects of Roseville Transit service, including the review of our commuter, local, and our aero services. Staff expects significant changes to our core service over the next couple years through this process. As we prepare through the COA process for the conversion of our buses as well from gas and diesel over to electric, we have been pretty busy developing necessary infrastructure to support this transition. There are 2 bus charging facilities that have been under construction for the most part of fiscal year 23. The bus charging facility at the Courtyard as well as the Galleria charging facility. Construction began at the Courtyard in August of 2022. This is phase 1 of a $5 million charging project, which was complete in the spring of 2024 for the phase 1. This phase of the project will enable us to charge 10 40-foot commuter buses. We expect to arrive later this year and early into next year. Phase 2 is now underway. During this phase, we will install Level 2 and Level 3 dispensers to charge the 12 electric vans expected to arrive in early 2025. Phase 3, which will be the final phase, will provide us with the charging capacity for our local buses, which will hopefully arrive in early 2026. Once complete, the new Courtyard Depot will charge up to a total of 30 buses at one time. So very excited about that project. Concurrent with the build of the Courtyard Charging Depot is the installation of 2 overhead chargers. These are called pantographs at the Galleria transfer point. This project began in fiscal year '23. These 2 units will provide en-route charging throughout the day for the new Rapid Link buses. The Galleria project is awaiting some long-term items and should be ready to go by spring of 2025. Connected to the charging project just mentioned is the purchase of electric buses and vans to replace vehicles beyond their useful life. While Roseville has been extremely successful in securing funds to purchase new electric buses, the final delivery of these buses continues to be a bit challenging. During the past year, the company who was building our 40-foot commuter buses, Proterra, was bought out by Phoenix Motor Cars. While this delayed the production of the actual bus build itself, Phoenix was actually able to retain a lot of the staff from Proterra, which is helping move in the progress of the build along fairly well. The first 10 buses will consist of 5 commuter buses and 5 Rapid Link buses, are expected to be delivered beginning late this year and early into next year. Roseville maintenance staff is visiting the Phoenix factory in South Carolina actually this week, inspecting the 4 first commuter buses. This slide, along with the next few slides, shows pictures of our new commuter buses and our Rapid Link bus. We will make sure to keep the commission updated on the arrival of these buses when known. Needless to say, again, we're very excited about the arrival of these buses as they have been a long time coming. So this is a picture here of the commuter bus that they're working on. In this case, they're working on the undercarriage in the factory itself back in South Carolina. And this is a picture of our Rapid Link bus. So again, those are the 2 different designs, that the 5 for the commuter bus and then the 5 for the Rapid Link bus. So this next slide is also another picture of our Rapid Link bus. And we worked many hours with our marketing staff to come up with a modern, electric-looking design for this new service. So we were pretty pleased with the way that it came out. Speaking of Rapid Link, once these buses are delivered and the Galleria overhead chargers are installed, the new bus service will begin. We're hoping to have the service in play by the spring of 2025. As a reminder, this new bus service will connect Lincoln, Roseville, and Watt and I-80 rail station with 30-minute headways each weekday. This is a regional bus service that is being operated by the City of Roseville. All capital and operational costs have been or will be provided by the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. Rapid Link is a 3-year pilot program. After 3 years, the region will decide whether to continue the service, modify it, or eliminate it. Although there is marketing and training which still needs to take place, staff will also keep the commission in the loop regarding the details and timelines regarding this new exciting service. Another project we mentioned last year was a Roseville bus shelter replacement project. Roseville currently has many old shelters that need to be replaced or repaired. Many shelters look old and do not provide a welcoming place for our passengers to wait for our buses. Also, most of the shelters include glass panels that need to be replaced when broken. The cost to replace these glass panels has skyrocketed over the past couple years. Because of this, staff has made the decision to replace up to 40 of these shelters using SB 125 state funding that has recently become available to Roseville Transit. The project is currently on hold until the COA is complete. This way, we can ensure that the new shelters will be placed on the new route lines. Although we have not chosen the design of the new shelters to date, we will be looking for a modern look with the shelters that will not contain glass panels. Our ultimate goal is to improve the bus riding experience for our passengers as we roll out our new COA plans. All right, Game Day Express. The Game Day Express is something we rarely talk about at the commission meetings. However, the success of this service is worth mentioning. For those not familiar with the Game Day Express, Roseville Transit offers service to the Golden One Arena for all Kings home games. The bus meets right outside the Civic Center here, and Roseville residents only have to pay $3.25 each way for the trip down and back. In fiscal year '21, ridership was 589 passengers. Fiscal year '22, we jumped up to 1,120, while last year in fiscal year '23, we increased that to 1,284. This is an average of 16 passengers per trip. We are proud to offer this service and hope the Kings continue to play well and hopefully make the playoffs this year. The better they play, the more passengers we're going to have. That's how that usually equates. So, but it's going very well year to date. With that, we had a little video that we wanted to show you.
This could be your seat. Game Day Express is welcoming you. Game Day Express is convenient, affordable, stress-free, and of course, fun. Reserve your seat today and make a great game even better.
We were going to provide popcorn, but we thought you'd have to eat it too quickly, so. Well, that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Frost. At this time, I would like to open up the item for the public comment. Is there anyone from the public, excuse me, that would like to address the commission on this item? If so, you'll have 5 minutes. Please address the commission only. And if you do ask questions, you may be referred to contact the Alternative Transportation Department outside of this meeting, and the commission reserves the right to discuss the matter with or without staff. Can I have your name?
Hi, my name is Maya Acosta. So from the summary that I saw online, I think there was for the performance report, there was something that jumped at me, addressing that Roseville Transit was behind in ridership in terms of recovering from post-COVID versus other agencies around California, around the country. So I think it would be helpful to get an understanding of what we are doing to mitigate that. I definitely think that there are issues or a major gap in awareness. And it's not just a matter of knowing where people want to go, but also letting people know that we can take them where they need to go. I wonder if there are possible opportunities, like Roseville has a lot of events coming up for the end of the year. And this is where we really see a need for public transit. And I don't know if there's any opportunity to, in the future, partner with Parks and Recreations to be able to provide public transit when there is high demand. For example, the tree lighting last year, it was very congested. There was no parking, so I know for a lot of people they weren't able to attend because of that. Also, sorry, just trying to get a better idea of where I'm at. Yeah, so also just, I don't know if it's something that's also being addressed, but in terms of budget, I think it would be helpful for us to understand how Measure B plays into balancing any scenario in the future where you would project a year without budget increases. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to address the commission on this agenda item? Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening, Michael Barnbaum, and I wasn't sure if I was going to speak on this, but there was something brought up on the rapid link portion of the presentation, so I wanted to let everybody know, since it was mentioned in that topic, the term Watt I-80 station. As hopefully the commission and Roseville residents and staff knows, there is a major transportation investment going into a remodel and remake of the Watt I-80 station. So project is called Reimagine Watt I-80. and it was funded through the bipartisan infrastructure law, or even better known as the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act of 2021, is how that project is being paid for. Among other things, it is widening the bus turnout and the bus lane to accommodate additional service. Work continues to date, and the project, hopefully in full, will be completed by March 31st of 2026. So I think that is just a project to keep an eye on and continuously see how it's going as the work is going on right now. Current service that connects there coming from the Roseville or other areas is the Placer County Transit Route 10. It's more or less an hourly service right now, and it runs 6 days a week. There will likely be some service improvements or service changes to that service through the comprehensive operational analysis done at the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, because that was more involving Placer County Transit services and not Roseville Transit Services, which you'll get into a little bit later on, as staff said in tonight's agenda. Last thing I want to say is about Game Day Express and kind of looking at that in the future and what future plans there could be in and around the Civic Center area here. Want to remind everybody that tomorrow I will be in Oakland, and you're like, what does that have to do with Roseville? Well, it does. It's the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors meeting, and it's the last one of the year. One of the projects that they have been really trying to get on and be a successful capital project is the SR3T, or Sacramento Roseville Third Track Project. When successfully completed, and they're able to, it will initially increase Capital Corridor service to an additional 2 round trips to Roseville, with a full build out of an additional 10 round trips to Roseville. The schedule and times are not known, so that's kind of the big mystery when that does get implemented. But if something like that does, one thing you don't want to see is that just within a walk under the underpass here at Washington Boulevard, you don't want to see a competition of riders between Game Day Express and future increases of Capital Corridor frequency. So one thing I ask, and I know I'd like to monitor myself as well, is should it be considered? You don't have to take action on it tonight, but just look into it in the near future. Should Game Day Express be relocated to, let's say, the Galleria transfer point, where many Placer County transit services would meet up with it, and therefore it would be at a transit center a distance away from the Civic Center rather than adjacent to the train station here in Roseville, when there would be an increase of Capital Corridor services to both Sacramento as well as the Bay Area. It's just something to keep in thought, keep in mind, and consider as that project progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to address the commission for this agenda item? All right, so I'll open it up to commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments for the staff? How about Mr. McGeorge, start on this side?
Yeah, so just wanted to say, I think that the numbers for Arrow are great, and I think it sounds like they're going in the right direction of where we want them to go. I do have a question about the vans that are being purchased. We see what the buses are. Are the vans more of that that like cutaway style electric van, or are they more of a like Sprinter that has? I know some of them are smaller that still have wheelchair accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
They're Ford E350s. They are mid-height and mid-range as far as the size is concerned. They will have wheelchair lifts, obviously wheelchair capability, tie-downs as well. Seat-wise, you're looking anywhere from 5 to 6 per van. Of course, the intent with our microtransit program is to implement those, and they're going to be, quicker, faster than our current cutaways, and our cutaways between the 2014s. And we do have several new ones we're probably going to keep. But when we do get the 12 vans, then we're going to be looking at eventually retiring our fleet of 7 2014 cutaways, our box.
And then just as adding, I know we don't talk about Game Day Express, but we do have the Sac Republic are getting a stadium down in the rail yards, and the A's now belong to us for the next few years. And it'd be awesome if someone who has season tickets to both of those would have the opportunity to get on a bus right here and get there too. So it's just something to think about. But that's all I got.
And Mr. Bill?
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple comments. Thank you for the information. I think it was really, a good summary. Something that stood out to me was the 42.9% jump in the commuter ridership in Q4, which is ending June this year. So when you started seeing some RTO mandates down, with the state. So interesting to see if that trend continues. I guess on the bus shelter replacement, it's great that we have, is that secured funding, or we have funding in place for that, which is fantastic. I think as we talked previously, bus shelters are basic amenities that increase, it's going to be wet this week. And not all the bus stops have shelters, and just basic rider dignity is important, and I think that's really exciting. I think trying to pursue opportunities of scale and just pragmatic decisions. I think those that LA project of the weird sombrero looking bus stop thing that wasn't really a bus stop. So I would just encourage, I know that you guys make great decisions. So I don't think we need to get further than that. But questions on Rapid Link. Do we have estimated headways or schedules for that? I know we're operated by us. Is that something that Roseville Transit decides the schedules?
Yeah, the headways will be every 30 minutes and a weekdays. I don't remember what time, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., something like that.
Awesome. And then are there plans for establishing transfer reliability with SAC-RT at the Watt 80 section, how we interface with that organization?
We didn't schedule it specifically, and the reason is that the light rail service is every 15 minutes. So the thought being the bus will get there and you'll have no more than a 15-minute wait for the next train.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Radford?
Thank you for your presentation, Rich. Very informative as always. In Ed's report showing our fare box recovery rate coming back, but realistically in 2 years getting to that 15%, and we're at 9.17%. I mean, it's encouraging, but something's got to give. And the young lady shared, I think you guys are doing a good job. I can tell you I've sat on here for several years. These men and women that work for us are doing a terrific job about thinking outside of the box. I've seen a lot of change here. I also liked what Mike shared. I mean, bringing in good perspectives, and they take these things into consideration. Yes, absolutely. If we do get that third track, we've been talking about that for a decade. Jason and I were young and had more hair at that time, but we would love to see that project come to fruition. And when that does, I think these men and women are going to say, well, this would be a more viable option to move it on the other side of town, whether it be Rapid Link or something new. I did see, I was curious, the 5 buses, actually there's 10, 5 Rapid Link and 5 commuter buses. Just kind of a basic question, what's the difference, and I guess capacity and of the 2 buses? I think staff went and visited the facility, so.
Yeah, they're actually they're all 40-foot buses. So from a capacity standpoint, they're very similar. The Rapid Link buses are scheduled to get a bigger battery capacity. So the first build is going to be the commuter buses themselves with the Rapid Link to follow. Phoenix is still working and negotiating with Volva, the battery provider. So that's why those are coming secondary. But as far as the actual size and capacity, they're very similar.
Awesome. Well, and I think that's all the questions I had, and I just wanted to clarify, and probably not my place to do, but Measure B did fail. So we weren't successful. It needed 66.7%. I think we're at 63.61. So yeah, we'll have to go back to the drawing board, and I know that there's a lot of good minds in this county and PCTPA, and hopefully we'll come up with another plan. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, Commissioner Radford, is that with the 5 Rapid Links, those are the ones that have the overhead chargers, whereas by the normal commuters, they're plug-in. Now, the Rapid Links also have plug-in capability, so we'll be plugging those in at night, for example, at the Courtyard, but the actual en route charging will be done at the Galleria. But
The
that's only for
Pentagram, the chargers?
Pantograph, yep, that's
I like
right.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your report. No questions.
Mr. Roberts?
How are you guys? I had a couple things. I was kind of listening to all this with an eye for, I guess, looking forward. It's cool to see like all this information for the past fiscal year, and everything seems to be trending up. But I think we all know that the city, through the comprehensive operation analysis, has big plans coming like very shortly in the future, right? And I guess I'm hopeful to see some of these numbers go up, just based upon the plan that you guys want to put forward coming here at the beginning of the year. So I think that'll be interesting just to follow that. Obviously, the fare box ratio for a local fixed route, that's, you put more people on the bus, then the fare box ratio goes up. So certainly, hopefully the COA helps that. I had a question about the dial ride, just operational expenses, and this is just more of a curious question, since it's kind of a newer program. Would it be true to say that like maybe some of the costs were like an upfront cost, which isn't, and it isn't like a month over month cost that would, you could say, you could be hopeful that a fare box would go up just because the city had to pay more upfront to put together some of this dial ride stuff that you guys have been putting together the last couple of years, or it was just kind of curiosity, I guess.
So the question is are we putting, is the city putting up costs on the front end in order to reap some greater fare box recovery on the back end, or?
I guess I was looking at a perspective as the dial ride is a fairly new program. You guys integrated an app to like start hailing them and things like this. There were some costs that I think, I don't know how you do your analysis, but could it be that a fare box is just going to go up because there was more money spent up front for this program?
Yeah.
That won't be spent in the future because it's already spent.
The upfront costs related to Aero, because that's what we went to, they were pretty minimal. It's about $40,000 a year to run this service, or to operate the on-demand service, to have the app and all that. So there weren't a lot of costs setting it up. It was just the process in which riders reserve rides. Now it's gives them more flexibility, more opportunities. It makes it easier.
Yeah, certainly. And I guess the only other thing that I wanted to say is that I wanted to comment, missed the first public commenter. I appreciated all of your comments. I thought they were all great feedback for the city, and I just encourage you to keep doing more of the same. I think they were all really good comments that they're constructive for the city. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Very, very nicely done on the report, lots of work, and we do appreciate that. A couple questions. You mentioned there's some delay or a challenge in getting the electric buses delivered. Just to confirm, has there been any interrupted services at all? Do that? No? Okay. And also, has there been any considerations for an increase in, or is there a need for an increase in buses on particular special days, special holidays, special event days, anything like that? Has there been a need seeing at all for that?
Yeah, well, we provide we have special services for some, internal city special events. There's some mitigating regulations that prevent us from putting some service into place in that our buses are funded by FTA, and as such, we are unable to do some service that we get requested from time to time, charter type of services and those type of things. As far as the actual evaluation of the COA, what we were very cognizant of and took very seriously was some of the analysis that went into creating the new route structures and where the ridership currently is. So as we currently stand, our buses, although some busier than others, there's not any of the routes that are necessarily from a fixed route that are at full capacity, a majority of the time. So they will get that way, especially the A, B, and M route, especially during the next couple months. But beyond that, trying to understand the passenger, the ridership, and again, that's the type of data that went into some of the changes that you're going to see here later tonight, our proposals.
All right, appreciate that. Is there anybody else? Any commissioners, questions, comments, anything else? Okay. All right, so at this time, can I get a motion and a second to accept the fiscal year 2023-24 annual transit performance report?
All motion.
Mr. Roberts
I'll second.
and Mr. McGeorge. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, motion is approved. Okay, moving on to the next item, 6.2, Roseville Transit Comprehensive Operational Analysis Approval. This is an action item. A vote will be taken. Staff, can we have your presentation?
Good evening again, Ed Schofield. I'm joined once again with Rich Frost and also Raul Kumar, who you've had a few presentations given to over the year. He's the CEO of Innovate Mobility and the lead consultant with the COA project. This evening's presentation seeks the Commission's recommendation to the City Council to approve the Roseville Transit COA. The catalyst for the COA was the recognition that Roseville Transit's ridership continued to experience ridership declines, even before the COVID pandemic. So while the pandemic resulted in a significant reduction in transit ridership, the downward trend was happening years before. In 2014, Roseville's ridership was 400,000. And as you just heard with the previous item, our annual ridership this year was up to 180,000. So it should be noted that, once again, this type of ridership decline has been happening throughout the U.S., so it's not just a Roseville thing. However, instead of accepting things as is, staff embarked upon the COA to look at different ways to do things and to look at ways in which we could improve transit services for our residents. The plan is not perfect. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to transit. Also, we recognize that many people will never take transit, right? You could have a bus outside their house leaving every 5 minutes and they still wouldn't try transit. So with this in mind, we've developed a plan that we feel best balances the need for transit in Roseville while remaining fiscally responsible with our transportation funds. As for the plan itself, the work is not done after tonight. If the Commission recommends approval this evening, staff will then go to the City Council early next year to seek approval of the plan. Assuming the Council approves the plan, this will not result in the implementation of the COA recommendations. There are some minor changes we can make in the near term, but we will return to the Commission with any major service changes for your approval. So this won't be the last time you hear from us on these items. So before we go into the presentation, I'd just like to acknowledge the extensive work and collaboration that was done with all of our regional partners. I especially want to note Mike Costa with the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, who's back there, and Jamie Wright with Placer County Transit. Mike and Jamie work closely with us to ensure that our recommended service changes aligned with the plans of our regional partners. So with that, I'll hand it off to Raul.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, members of the Commission. First, I want to apologize for dumping a 462-page document on your laps, and I hope it was not a cure for insomnia. Our goal throughout the last 13 months has been to share as much as what we know and what we've found out as soon as we know and we find it out. And so while we may not have given you each individual section when we were presenting it, hopefully there weren't any surprises in the document that you read. Tonight, we're going to talk quite a bit about what went into the planning process from a public engagement point of view. And then we'll talk a little bit about the financing, and then a bit about the implementation plan, and then finally the next steps. To Ed's point of view, this is not a plan that you will be approving writ large tonight. We hope that your consideration will be taken to the concept of this plan, which is that this is where we believe, as consultants and with collaboration with staff, that the city should go in terms of its transit direction. But over the next 3 years, with the implementation, things may change, development, travel patterns, et cetera. And so what we've given the city is a roadmap of things that they can choose to do, and obviously up to the commission and the council's approval, and then involving the public in that throughout the next few phases. The other point is that this should not be a document that sits on the shelf. What we have tried to create is a living, breathing document that's malleable enough that the staff can actually look at and say, okay, we thought at the time this was a great approach, but perhaps certain things have changed, and so we want to tweak things here and there. So that's a lot of my caveats. With that, I'd like to go right into the presentation. And actually, I did forget one really critical thing. I want to especially thank you, the commission, and your staff. In my 20-something years of doing this, I don't think I've ever worked with a staff that has been as supportive, but also as demanding that we turn around good, innovative results for the sake of the ridership. And I believe in the last several months that we've been here, the commission has also been supportive, and so I do want to thank you for that. As we look at kind of what we've done so far, we came into this thinking the landscape of Roseville has changed. It is a growing city, especially with COVID. There's a lot of folks who live here now that may not have lived in this region before. It is an affluent city as we compare it to other cities in the area and around the country. And so with that said, we know that this is not going to be a 30 passenger per hour, 35% fare box ratio city. We know that. But what can we do to design experiential services that help people get not only from point A to point B, but become loyal users of public transportation? And how can we adapt the current structure of services to better meet the needs of how people travel today? Next slide, please. So as we looked at everything, like I said, the population has grown, but also the economic structure of this city has grown. There is constant development. There is quite a bit of, I wouldn't say densification, but there's quite a bit of residential development in areas. But one of the things that comes with that residential development is not exactly the forethought that goes into how much transit can benefit those areas. Cul-de-sacs, walls on the side of, like, say, Pleasant Grove Boulevard, really deterrents to using transit. So we've got to kind of go not just the extra mile, but the extra mile and a half to get to people where they are. But we know that there is transit demand. I think you've seen it here from some very, very vocal residents. We saw it as part of the public outreach, that there is demand and there is a need for good, reliable transit services, which the city provides. But how can we, again, improve the experience? Next slide, please. So what do we do? I'm not going to rehash all of the things that we've done so far, but we took a very data-driven approach, including using cellular data, ridership data, changing economic data, the census data, as much data as we could get our hands on, we used to formulate what we think is a profile of a rider in the region. And then we supplemented that with tremendous community engagement. I'll say that I've never, in the last 5 or 6 studies of this type we've done, we've never received 1,000+ responses. I mean, that represents over 70 to 80% of your potential ridership, and probably more than that to be honest. And the great thing that your city's marketing team and your staff did was they went on and reached beyond the traditional rider. So we have a really good perspective of major employers, of riders, of non-riders in our community engagement process. And obviously, and I hope in the next project I don't have to keep bringing up COVID-19, but I do here, because we need to understand, yes, there's been a downturn, and no system is back to 100%. No system across the U.S., even the most dense cities, are not back to 100%. And I fear they never will be. 60-70% is pretty good. 50% is about on average of cities of Roseville's type. So I do believe, and I was very heartened to see the ridership numbers at the end of the last fiscal year, because the trends that Roseville is seeing, especially from the commuter services, are all going in the right direction. In fact, it really did help formulate some of the changes you're going to see tonight that we hadn't thought of even 3 or 4 months ago. Next slide, please. So talking through the public engagement, we did quite a bit over the last year and a couple months. We did multiple surveys. There was 3 surveys total, 4 if you include specific surveys to the commuter ridership. 2 public open houses, and thank you for those who came. We really appreciate it. We had really good attendance at both of those open houses, and we did flash vote surveys. It's a new way of surveying residents in the area, and I think we received over 800 responses from the flash vote surveys, which was really great. And a lot had to do, and I really commend the public speaker, the first public commenter. There is a lack of understanding and awareness of the service, and I was just talking to staff before we came here about some of the things we can do to improve that awareness. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about some really key messaging that came out of the public comments. One was increased accessibility. And when I say that, it is big A accessibility in the sense that better wheelchair access, better access for those with limited mobility, things like that. In talking with staff, one of the things that we've heard with the new bus procurement, for example, the electric buses are going to be significantly quieter. The vans will have lifts instead of ramps, so it'll actually make it easier for people with reduced mobility to board those services. Real-time bus tracking, that is actually part of our recommendation here, and it's part of the upcoming procurement that staff is conducting for an operations contractor. Real-time bus tracking, so not just aero buses, but local and commuter services, people will be able to trip plan as well as track their vehicles live in real time. And an expanding service area. We went into this saying, look at the western part of the city, look at West Park, and I couldn't agree more with everyone who says we need more service in West Park. But there are unfortunately certain issues of densification, things like that, that prevent robust services today. But that's not to say that that won't happen tomorrow as things densify. Next slide, please. Roseville's transit rider demographic is pretty standard. It's a good mix, 50-50 of male versus female. There is the rider does tend to be older than 65, but we also have quite a few riders, especially students, on the lower end. The routes that folks use are the M, the A, and the B. So you know, nothing surprising there. Next slide, please. But I think one of the things that we really gleaned from the comments were, what are the major issues facing riders, preventing them from using transit today? One of them is schedules and routes. So while the routes do provide plenty of coverage, we've talked about this, running every 60 minutes makes transfers very difficult, and 40% of your riders do transfer on a daily basis. It also makes trip times extremely long. You miss one bus, you may be waiting an additional hour, and then you have another 55, 60 minutes to get to your destination. So we know that, and we're addressing that here. The second thing, and Ed mentioned this, there is a preference for personal vehicles. You know, I said this, I think, in our first presentation. I don't believe in the term transit dependency because it basically says that people are 1 or 2 socioeconomic indicators away from not using transit. But here, there's the opposite, and trying to get folks out of their car, despite the congestion, despite the expense, despite $5 a gallon in gas, there's still a preference for personal vehicles. So we want to improve the experience. We want to improve the usage functions of the services. And then finally, timeliness of buses. And in our data, we saw buses do run 85, 90% on time. There were concerns, though, sometimes with commuter buses because routes were being combined. They weren't getting to and from Sacramento on time. And as you saw with the ridership increasing on commuter, that it was more difficult to reach your destination on time. Next slide. We also saw a lot of positive aspects. Buses are safe. They're easy to pay. The buses are comfortable. There's plenty of seating. So folks were generally happy. If you rate it on a scale of A through F, I would kind of surmise that to say it's a solid B+. So if the folks who ride regularly, they are happy. And that's why it's kind of difficult to say, let's wipe the table and let's present a whole bunch of new stuff, because folks who are happy, who do ride daily, are going to be impacted. And that, I take no pleasure in saying, let's do away with the service that you use, your family uses on a daily basis. But we're trying to attract a broader range. We're trying to increase the scope and scale of the overall transit network. And so that's kind of the uphill battle that we're facing. Next slide, please. And then, finally, as we talk about what were the key priorities, frequency. So the average bus runs every 60 minutes here. Again, I talked about real-time tracking and accessibility, and then improving where the buses go and getting them faster. Next slide, please. So that's what we looked at. We looked at improving the frequency, expanding the transit coverage, and then increasing and improving the environmental sustainability of the service. And the staff and obviously you as a commission have supported that tremendously. So it makes our job a lot easier when we propose electrifying a certain service, or changing to battery electric buses or low sulfur diesel buses. Next slide, please. We always start with, when we look at everything, the framework. And right here, the framework is not very different than what you'll see today. I think what you'll see is a difference in how the routes are implemented and how frequent the routes are going to run. Next slide, please. As we talk about the data that went into planning those service changes, I think we talked about the cellular data that we used. Again, supplemented with the ridership data, as well as the aero data. So ridership on local and commuter and the aero data gives us a really good idea of where people are coming from and where they're going. What are the high demand areas? How do we better serve them? This is a map that we showed you a few months ago that talked about average travel time. And across the board, the experienced travel time is over 70 minutes for the average transit rider. Some folks can walk right into the bus and it's 25 minutes, but the average trip is over 70 minutes. And Roseville isn't big enough for a 70-minute commute. We need to find a way to shorten that time. Next slide, please. So that leads us to our preferred service plan. And I know that one of the questions that came back just in the last couple of weeks was, what do the individual local routes look like? And what we wanted to do was put the regional network map, which includes all the local routes, in the documents. That regional network map actually shows you how all of the routes interact, and this includes all the changes. We do have all the individual routes here, so we're happy to go through them as we get public comments, and I believe that the commission has received the individual maps. Also, after today, we will publish all those individual maps on the project website so people can review them in detail. But what you see here in the preferred service plan is all of those individual routes together in that network. So let's talk about kind of the overall structure of the local service. The local service is made up of the local fixed routes and the aero. The local fixed routes have been realigned and reimagined to serve the high traffic areas. Now, that means there's new services along Fairway. That means that there are new routes that can improve single seat rides from point to point. We've also designed some of the longer routes and split them into segments, so that way, you know, if you look at Route 4 from Lewis and Orlando to, say, the Kaiser Hospital, it's one segment. And then from the Kaiser Hospital to the Galleria, that's another segment. We've also improved connections at major transfer points. So folks are not transferring in the middle of nowhere, they're transferring at hubs. This allows people to better connect. The Aero service is probably going to be the biggest change. And Commissioner Roberts brought up a really good point about the cost of the Aero service. The reason why it costs as much as it does is because the trip lengths are so long. You can go right now from anywhere to anywhere in the Roseville Transit Service area with one Aero trip. The upside of that is that's great. For those that can afford it, they've got a single seat ride anywhere they want to go. The impact of that is that one person booking a ride from, say, the West Park area to the Galleria means that bus is no longer available for 40 minutes, 45 minutes. That means someone else has to wait 45 minutes, 60 minutes. So the single biggest change we're recommending here is converting that Aero zone for non-ADA users to 3 zones. This reduces the travel time and wait time significantly. I'm talking by a third or more. So instead of waiting 45 minutes for an Aero bus, you could be waiting 15 minutes. Instead of your travel time being 45, 60 minutes, it would be 15, 20 minutes. The downside of that change, I would say intended consequence, is that folks who want to travel longer distances will do so on fixed route. And that is really the point of the fixed route service. And that's also one of the reasons why we're recommending reducing the frequencies to every 30 minutes on the majority of the fixed routes. This will allow folks to transfer easily, and we're providing some technology in the COA recommendations that allows people to do trip planning from beginning to end, including Aero to fixed route. And that entire journey will still be less than that single seat Aero ride that you took, or that single fixed route trip that you had to take, or that fixed route trip to a transfer that you had to make. Yes, it is a little bit more inconvenient for the folks that do travel cross zone with one Aero trip, and for those that are ADA eligible, they can still do that. Nothing changes for them. But for the folks that are the general riding public, we are proposing that change into zones. Next slide, please. Talking about Rapid Link a little bit. Now, Rapid Link has been in development for a very long time, and our goal when we came in wasn't so much to design Rapid Link, but was to figure out how does Rapid Link fit into the overall network? How does it connect Lincoln with Roseville, Roseville with Watt I-80? And so the design of Rapid Link is not as critical as the fact that we've designed the surrounding services to feed Rapid Link to increase ridership in key areas. I don't think Rapid Link by itself in any of these stops is going to blow the doors off. However, by getting people to these areas with Aero or fixed route, and where we've designed some of these stops, we do believe that Rapid Link will be a significant driver of ridership growth over the next couple of years. With that said, it is a pilot project. So you'll see in the financing, you'll see in the, you would have seen in the hours plan, we have carved it out as a separate line item. So if it does go away after 3 years, there are recourses that the city can take with redesigning its local network to accommodate those. So it's not kind of the end of the world. And as we talk about commuter services, we didn't want to upset the apple cart. There is, to Commissioner Pell's point of view, the RTO mandates have increased. We do see more and more people going back to the office. We also see the Maley office complex coming online, and it's already online now, but more buildings are being opened up. What we want to do was make those commuter trips faster, so we can actually provide more service, but do it a little bit cheaply, a little bit more cheaper, and still connect some of the major parking rides like Taylor and Mahaney, but also some of the smaller ones like Saugstad. So right now, the average commuter rider, if you're coming from one of those major points, they're going to see between 17 and 20 minutes less travel time per day. So it's pretty significant. If you add that over the course of a month, it's a pretty significant time. Next slide, please. And this is kind of where I talked about how I started this presentation. What you're approving today isn't set in stone. What we're asking for is an approval of the last 13 months worth of work and this conceptual plan. But the implementation as it goes over the next 2 to 3 years, the staff will do public hearings. The staff will come back at budget times to say, we have enough money for phase 1. We have enough money for phase 2. We may need to readjust Rapid Link. And that will be presented to the commission, that will be presented to the council if necessary, and everything it will kind of build upon itself over the next several years. So we are asking for approval of the whole plan, but over the next 2.5 to 3 years, you'll have another chance to come back and say, yeah, the staff will come back and say, we had this as an idea for phase 3. Things have changed, so we want to kind of go in a different direction. We're seeing that now. We worked on a COA 3 years ago with Yuba Sutter Transit. One of the routes that we were recommending changing dramatically ridership has grown 200% in the last 6 months. So they're redesigning that phase, and they're going to go in a different direction. They're going to their board on Thursday to do that. So again, they approved the whole plan, but at each phase, staff has come back to kind of adjust the plan as necessary. Next slide. I think this is the point where I start to get really excited about the future. We've used very conservative ridership growth models. It's not something like we just multiply the hours by the potential ridership growth. We actually go and we look at population growth, development growth, everything that we can look at, employment growth, the chance for recession, the chance for no recession, that kind of thing. And we forecast in a pretty detailed ridership model. As you can see, ridership, if everything goes according to plan, with Rapid Link staying for the next 10 years, and if you see the system and the plan being implemented as is, you'll see almost a 200% growth in ridership. And that's exciting. It gets you back over COVID levels, so that's good. The nice thing is it also does reduce the cost of some of these per trip expenses, like with Aero. But it does come at a cost, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you'll be talking 500,000, maybe 600,000 riders per year at the end of the service plan, which is a nice number. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you if that's going to happen, but I have quite a bit of faith that lines up with kind of what we've seen over the last couple of years with our plans. Next slide, please. So this is where the rubber hits the road. And I don't know if I could have highlighted that any brighter. We looked at a number of different scenarios, from unconstrained, constrained, no increase, and then we came up with something called the preferred scenario. That's the scenario we're asking you to approve today. The cost for that scenario over current costs is to put it mildly, is a sticker shock. But here's where that kind of comes to bear. Overall, compared to current costs, we're asking for about an 8 to 9.5% increase. The lion's share of those costs come from a projected increase in your operations contract. That is not something that anyone has control over. That is something that industry-wide, if you contract out every 5 to 7 years, you're going to see an increase. That has been built into this. That is almost $1 million worth of that increase. That's $7.1 million in year one is the operations contract. So with that in mind, what we tried to come up with the preferred service plan was some way of adding all of these better experiences, better services, with trying to mitigate some of these cost increases. So I think your fixed costs, your administrative costs, staff costs are fantastic. You're very low and not projected to increase significantly. Rapid Link for the first 3 years is funded by a grant. If you look at the full cost of this plan, it starts at $7.1 million and going up to $9.6 million. So year over year, it is not a significant increase once you get through the first year. But that is the cost of of increasing frequency, adding new services, and things like that. Next slide, please. We also wanted to restructure the fare policies as you have them today. Most of it is just eliminating some of the superfluous fares that you have, but some of it is also designed to, again, facilitate that arrow service to fixed route transfer. And that big change is reducing the single ride arrow cost from $3.75 to $1.50. This is for the general public rider. This is in line with your fixed route costs on purpose. Because folks are going to have to transfer, we wanted to make sure that the cost wasn't so astronomical that the service wouldn't be taken at all. Now, with fare capping, which is another part of what we recommended and something the staff has talked about, this means that folks who ride 3 and 4 and 5 times a day, they'll have a high end that they won't have to pay over. You know, it's not like they have to pay $1.50 every single time they ride. They may pay $4, $4.50, and that's it for the rest of the day. And then there may be a weekly cap or a monthly cap on top of that. So what we're trying to make it, the service is as approachable as humanly possible. You shouldn't even have to think. You should be able to either push a button to get on the ride, make a phone call, ask your healthcare provider, your adult housing provider, whoever you're working with. It should be a piece of cake to ride the system going forward. Next slide, please. When we started out, we mapped out all of the trip generators in the system. And those are little dots, very, very little from this distance. But they're very, very important dots because they represent little clusters of ridership. And what we show here is green means the trip is accessible in less than 45 minutes. Red means the trip is greater than 70 minutes. So if you are in that western Roseville area, your trips are longer. Even with Arrow today, your trips are very long. Next slide, please. When we look at the proposed service plan and we superimpose the Arrow zones, there's not a single trip that will be anywhere near in time or length than what folks have to face currently. On average, yes, there will be a few people who unfortunately will have longer trips, may have another transfer, but by and large, where there are clusters of ridership, we're providing fast, frequent, easy-to-use service under the service plan. The economic impacts are significant as well because these are areas where economic redevelopment can happen. These are, transit opportunity zones where folks can build quick stop areas like dry cleaners and drugstores and things like that where people can run in and out. So the benefit is not just to transit, it's the benefit to the non-transit user just as much as the transit user. Next slide. So in closing, this has been a really great 13 months working on this project. We're not done yet. We hope to get your approval tonight of the preferred service plan and look forward to all the questions you and the public have, and hopefully we have answers to them. But even when it is approved or not approved, if it is, the goal is to have it be something that staff, the commission, the council, riders can collaborate on and use as a bit of a blueprint to go forward with service changes for the next decade. That said, again, I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't know if staff wants to make the recommendation, but I'll have a seat as you take public comments.
Thank you, sir. So at this time, we'd like to open up this item for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the commission on this item? You'll have 5 minutes. Please address the commission only, and if you ask any questions, you may be referred to the Alternative Transportation Department outside this meeting. The commission reserves the right to discuss the matter with or without staff.
Okay, I've timed it for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, so I should be okay. My name is Peter Eklund. I'm a resident of Rockland. I've closely followed this COA effort and have fully read and analyzed the past SRTP. I have general comments on the plan and more detailed comments on those elements that affect transit service in Rockland. The current SRTP for the period 2018 to 2025 does not exist on the Roseville website. It is only on the PCTPA website and is not even up to date. What is now Rapid Link project between Lincoln and Wad I-80 Light Rail was formerly called the South Placer Express, was adopted by the PCTPA board as a Roseville Transit local route in June 2020, almost 4.5 years ago. There was a public hearing, but no further public engagement occurred, and the project clearly was never part of the overall planning effort for this COA. In fact, data from the previous SRTP documents the fact that the existing Placer County Transit routes 10 and 20 will suffer major decreases in ridership because of this route. The obvious solution for weekday service is to remove the overlaps in service and maximize Rapid Link ridership. But Placer County Transit in its COEA plan actually wants to double the existing service for the two routes to create 15-minute headways at the Rapid Link endpoints. This unjustified action will undermine Rapid Link and creates the need for Roseville to reimburse PCT routes for ridership lost. Roseville staff needs to push back so that Rapid Link has a fair chance at being successful. My recommendation is that Rapid Link be included in the SRTP, which it is not. It is in it, but nobody knows about it, but not until adequate text and operating data are provided to the public. Nothing has ever been presented to the public in the last 4.5 years by either Roseville or PCTPA. That's an issue. I strongly support the route planning process results, although the process as documented is sometimes somewhat difficult to follow. The plan eliminates all loops and includes a long overdue extension of Route M, now called Route 5, to Blue Oaks on Fairway. I would have liked to have seen it extended via Lone Tree to Sunset, but I've been unsuccessful in pushing hard for this extension to be included in the PCT COA plan. Rockland and Roseville residents, when shopping, don't know where the boundary actually exists, which is 385 feet east of Blue Oaks. Also, the old Route E serving the Rockland Sierra College campus is being eliminated, and all trips to Sierra College campus in Rockland will occur via Route 10 service at the Galleria. For this reason, Route 10 is actually a part of the Roseville COA plan and should be shown on the present map. I'm all in favor of that. That's just common sense. For the first time in Placer County, there's a long overdue plan for integrated planning of fixed route and dial-a-ride services. For too long, the so-called unmet transit needs process had advanced the false argument that fixed route and dial-a-ride services provide equal transit access. This is totally misleading and detrimental to the planning of fixed route service. Cost per rider for dial-a-ride is now 5 times that of fixed route service. And the consultant is entirely correct that it's all because of long trips. Integrating the two services will increase the capacity of dial-a-ride service by having shorter trips and shift portions of trips at no additional cost to fixed route service. This major change in strategy will create some public acceptance issues initially, and fine-tuning the system will be required over time. But the emphasis on first mile, last mile connections to fixed route service is required to achieve overall cost efficiency. As part of this strategy, secure bike lockers should be provided at 1 to 2 mile intervals to provide improved bike access to fixed route transit. Also, small park and ride facilities, 10 to 15 vehicles, should be provided at major commercial sites with adequate weekday parking as a further access option to fixed route service. I'm concerned about some possible unintended consequences of the proposed policy that provides major discounts for dial-a-ride service within a zone. Many users might decide to transfer to dial-a-ride in an adjacent zone, which would undermine the advantages of dual-mode connections. I applied Roseville's use of in-person workshops for the planning effort, but one more is necessary so that residents can comment on the final map and policies. There have been no interim documents available, and the 464-page final document is difficult to digest, especially for those unfamiliar with the early stages of the overall transit planning process. Several important changes have been introduced since the last workshop. Input needs to occur from the following groups of residents.
Mr. Eklund, we appreciate your comments. Unfortunately, you have gone over, but we have a good sense of on what you have going.
Basically, I think it's a really good process, but I'd like to see, it's at the 99, it's in the red zone, and I think another extra workshop would really get at the extra 10
Right, sir, we appreciate that.
10 yards. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Commission, this is John Freitas again. Couple things. I keep hearing about faster. We want faster. I'm going to go the opposite. Get on the bus. It's time to relax. Take as long as it takes to get there with Wi-Fi. If you have a laptop, a phone, get stuff done. Don't have to get off the bus, get on another one. We got these 3 zones. No good. Just have the one. And then you talk about single seat ridership. No, that doesn't occur like that. If I'm going to go from West Roseville to, I don't know what's the far end. Maybe I'm going to go to Harbor Freights or something. You get on, dial a ride, and it'll take you to Harbor Freights. But if there's pickups between point A and point B, the bus will stop, the shuttle will stop and pick up those riders. You don't know where you're going, but you know you're going to eventually get to Harbor Freights. You just got to pick up this lady. Okay, over here. And it's not fast, but you know what? In today's world, as fast as it is, it's nice to just, okay, I don't have to drive. I don't have to go anywhere. The other thing, too, I don't see in the maps, we see streets and ridership, but there's nothing addressing the trails. I think that's a secret ingredient for Roseville, our trail system. It's fabulous. There's 2 bike racks per bus. A lot of times they're taken by 10 speeds. I have an e-bike. It's got a 4-inch tire, and that's kind of the norm I'm seeing on these e-bikes. They got fat tires. Guess what? They don't fit in the rack. So I'd use the bus more if I could take my bike so I can, the fixed routes don't go everywhere, but I can ride the bike from the house to the station, to the stop, put on the bike, go to the far end, get off, take my bike, and go even further. And I keep thinking about it while I'm sitting here. The trail system is so fabulous. And if I want to take a bike and use a trail maybe in Folsom, rather than riding the bike all the way to Folsom and back, maybe I take the bus with the bike, pulls me 20 miles across town, then I get off and I can keep going into the future, where, some uncharted land that I haven't seen. Where else? So, the trails should be identified on these maps. And I don't know why I wrote this note here. I feel like I'm being played a little bit. And, am I going to bite? And I said, yes, I'm going to bite. So I don't know why. It feels that way. It's so obvious to me that could be improvements. I don't know. That's all.
All right. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Jennifer Higgins, and I live at 1550 Pleasant Grove Boulevard. I'm speaking to you tonight because I am concerned about the proposed changes to the routing. A few things. The zoning, especially. Dial-a-ride, the proposed zoning going to 3 zones. I think if you adopt this plan, you've heard people speak about it, saying that it would expedite the use of dial-a-ride for many people. I use dial-a-ride a lot for appointments and for work. I think going to a zone system, I have a girlfriend who lives back east in the suburb of Boston and uses dial-a-ride there. They just did away with their zonal system because it wreaked havoc on their ride system. I think that you need to really consider what you are doing when you take on this proposal. And I believe that you do not have enough driver staff to handle what you are about to do to the Roseville transit system. if you take on this zonal system and you think that it will expedite passengers across the system, I think it will make it harder for people to travel. It will make it longer, because especially if they lower the fares and people try to use the app, as I have tried to do, I have had to call the call center many times, because every time I get on the app, the rides that I want at particular times are not available. And they are not available at peak times because you do not have enough drivers to handle the rides. If I can double back into the other report that was given, when I have to depend on fixed route service to get me where I need to go because I can't depend on dial-a-ride, and I use certain points in the city, especially the Foothills transfer point, I have asked many times in previous meetings for you to consider putting a bus shelter on the inbound side. There is still not a bus shelter there in this incoming bomb cyclone that we're about to have. And in 110-degree heat, it would be great to have a bus shelter on that inbound side at Pleasant Grove and Foothills. There is not a bus shelter there. Please consider adding a bus shelter to major transfer points. Foothills is the only transfer point that does not have a bus shelter. Another one I want to say is this report was cut off at 2021, and you did not consider the numbers for 2022 and 2023 in your ridership. I think you need to look at that. The mapping for the routes was also not included in this, and I've said this, and I noticed in the comments that was put in there that it said no service was asked for Granite Bay. I have also asked for service to Granite Bay. I've worked with Mike Costa for that, and I know they're in the process of changing the hours in Granite Bay. But my daughter, who is severely disabled, has a infant class in Granite Bay that I have tried to get to, and I cannot get to. And when the hours are changed, I will still not be able to get to Granite Bay to the Orchard Ranch School for her class, because the hours are being changed from 9 to 11 and 2 to 4 to 10 to 2. And her class starts at 9:30, so there is still not dial-a-ride service that can get me to Granite Bay. Another thing I will add to that is when you change the A and B route and you are taking it away from Kaiser Riverside, it will be dangerous for me to have to cross the Riverside intersection. So my husband, who is a school bus driver, and I I'm making the suggestion that when route number 2, or whatever you change it to, comes down Riverside, why don't you turn left at the Riverside intersection and go on to Kirby and come down Orlando and then come up from the Orlando transfer point. That way you can include that little turnaround as he does his mapping when he maps out a new route that he's given after a bid. And you can have 2 routes that service that Orlando street, and you can still service that beautiful new bus shelter, and you can still get passengers to Kaiser Riverside.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We've reached the 5 minutes, so we do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Alan Panesci. I'm the presiding judge of the Placer Superior Court. This is Nazli Rezai. She is one of our administrative staff. We're here to support approval of this plan and the recommendations of the consultant, Innovative Mobility, right? We thank them for consulting with us at the court relating to this overall plan. We have a very narrow part of this, but an important part of it. In the expansion of the service, it would assist people who use the court, who would use public transportation, better opportunities to get to court on time before court starts. At the present time, I think the service is getting people there after court starts. Court generally starts, whatever kind of court it is, family law, probate, criminal, whatever it would be, small claims. They generally start at 8:30, and the bus system at the present doesn't accommodate that. Also, there's limited, in terms of the number of times the bus reaches the Santucci Center, would be expanded under this proposal. So we're a very narrow part of this, but it's an important part of it for people who need to get to court on time to deal with their legal issues. So anyway, thank you for letting us talk about that, and we would recommend that you approve this in that respect anyway. I know it's a much larger issue. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience who would like to address the commission? Sir, and your name?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is T. Nguyen. I am a 10-year resident of Roseville. This is also my first time giving public comment. So I first of all just wanted to thank the staff and everyone who worked on the COA for preparing it. It is a very substantial document. It took me many hours to read through, and I'm sure many countless hours to prepare and to proofread and everything. I wanted to voice my support for the preferred option in the implementation plan. I think the growth of the city necessitates that an equal growth in the services provided. It is also necessary for integration with the Rapid Link pilot program, simply because the enhanced service into and out of Roseville, Galleria, should also be complemented with an equally expanded set of local services. Regarding the zone model for the Aero service, I find that it's very similar to the one used in Reno, where the northwestern suburbs of the city are served by an on-demand bus service that then connects onto bus routes going east-west as well as north-south, which are the principal corridors in Reno. So it is a way to collect riders to and from the suburban areas and get them onto fixed routes in the city. With regards to the increased cost, I think that it is, as the consultant said, a modest increase, but with excellent value. So in that sense, it would be good for the city of Roseville as well as the riders. It also makes good use of the existing and anticipated vehicles to serve more riders within the same service area. And then I hope that you will approve the preferred option for the implementation plan for submission to the City Council for their consideration. Some other items I wanted to just mention is with regards to the Game Day Express, one thing for your later consideration would be whether to have local service, whether that be in the form of evening bus, fixed route bus services, or with on-demand service for those riders that are taking the Game Day Express back to Roseville. One of the things is that for games that start at approximately 7 p.m. or so, the bus would be leaving Roseville at around 5:45, which is still convenient to take services around Roseville to get to downtown Roseville to get onto the Game Day Express. But the return journey might be at around 9:30 or 10 o'clock when it comes in, returning to Roseville. And that would mean that fixed services might not be operating, and is also that's the edge of when the on-demand service is. So one thing potentially for consideration is to have potentially an extra hour of on-demand service, or perhaps those fixed lines that originate from downtown could then be they could have a final run for the evening to get those riders back to their home. In that way, it would be a well-rounded service so that riders could go essentially from their home, potentially onto Aero, get to downtown, change the Game Day Express, have a wonderful time in Sacramento, hopefully the Kings win and light the beam, and then come back the same journey that they did. Some other items would be, as a way of collecting additional revenue, would be for the commuter service. If it could also accommodate additional rounds for reverse commuters. Since the bus is already heading to downtown Sacramento with Roseville residents, it would make sense if those same buses, all of them, could collect Sacramento residents and bringing them up to their workplaces in Roseville. The bus is already coming back, so it might be a way of collecting additional revenue. The current commuter schedules, not all of them support reverse commuters. So I think this is potentially something that could be looked into to get that little bit of extra revenue. For my workplace specifically, I know that there are some of my work members that would consider taking service if only they could finish the that quote-unquote last mile within the city of Roseville. They could get as far as Luis Orlando, but getting from there to their workplace up Foothills Boulevard is still a sticking point. Oh, and finally, from the maps that were published or the preliminary maps in the COA, I did notice that the local routes 3 and 5, they come very close together at about the Topgolf area, and I wondered if potentially there may be the possibility of some sort of interchange there. Perhaps maybe people from the courthouse or from Galleria want to go play a round of golf or something. But that's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Was there anybody else?
Did you want to? Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something? Thank you. Michael Barnbaum, and I have worked on a countless number of these exercises throughout the 6-county region. Yesterday, I was just in Woodland. There was approval to restore services cut during COVID for express service in Davis. They're coming back next month to talk about the Woodland Transit Center, and the following month about a ballpark express or improved service with transit partners for the A's and the River Cats before their seasons get started in the spring. So a lot going on over there, and again, a lot going up here in Roseville and Auburn with a lot of COAs happening all at once throughout the 6-county region. On this one, I want to say I didn't get to see the presentation stopped right about when route maps were about to go on the screen. So maybe for the interest of the commission, the public, and maybe the viewing audience at home, if there's still time enough this evening to show the draft preliminary routes. I am aware, as the presentation stated, though, this is not the final iteration. There's going to be a recommendation to council to be looked at in the early part of next year, but any specific route changes will come back to the commission to be looked at, and perhaps the council for approval in a more detailed fashion. One of the routes I wanted to look at, and I had a little talk with staff before the meeting began, was the route from Lewis Orlando up here, Civic Center area, and I believe ending in the Wood Creek Oaks area. I can't remember the route number, but I want to see if that could be a 30-minute frequency, much like the draft proposals of the other routes if it was proposed at every hour, and if the service span can, to the suggestion of the last speaker, go until 2100 or 2200, so that folks that are attending something in this room or the Game Day Express, or whether that's for a basketball game or a Republic game in the future, if that's in the rail yards, would have the ability to get back to their transit connections, or home in Roseville, or again the transit connections back at Lewis Orlando if they're making longer regional trips after participation in civic engagement exercises like Transportation Commission meetings and City Council meetings, or other commission meetings of the city that they're interested in, whether they work here or that they live here. So that's what I wanted to suggest in the recommendation to be included with your motion to be made at the closing of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Sorry. One last thing with the time I had left.
Sure, go ahead.
I wanted to request back, as part of a way to increase ridership and increase revenue at the same time, to consider contactless fare payment devices in all the fixed route, commuter, and Aero buses. It would work as simple as, here's an Amtrak Guest Rewards MasterCard, and on the back you see a logo that looks like a sonar or sound. That itself right there is the contactless logo. And if you use it often enough in service locally or regionally, then fare capping would be introduced, that you go to nothing more than a regionally approved daily best fare. And if it use it often in a month, it would fare cap to a monthly cap, that you would have the daily or the monthly best fare. And that would probably have to be something to discuss either with the Transit Operators Working Group here in Placer County or the Transit Coordinating Committee throughout the 6 counties to determine what are the best prices. Thank you.
If it pleases the commission, may I address just a couple of those comments? I know this
What
is
we would have to do is open it up again for public
Okay,
comment.
I
if you
apologize. I
do.
just wanted to
So
provide a little context.
I have a feeling that some of the questions will be coming your way that you're
Okay.
thinking about already, so.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
So what we'll do is there any other people in the audience that would like to make a comment or address this item on the agenda? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to any comments or questions from the commissioners. We'll start on the side. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you for your comprehensive update. It was, it's interesting to see how you guys put all this together. I guess I didn't have a lot, but I thought it was really interesting that you mentioned that this is the malleability of the plan. I personally live in the West Park area, and I think, as we all know, that the city of Roseville is growing pretty rapidly and mostly in the West Park area. And I could see how in 3 years' time, when the city finally gets their West Roseville Costco and whatever else gets built around it, that maybe somebody that lives in the, in the neighboring areas would rather take a bus over there instead of over to Fairway, where most of the shopping is now, right? People in West Roseville tend to head east right now, but in 3 to 5 years' time, I think that trend may change pretty substantially once commercial places get built out. So it'll be interesting for myself and others to kind of track how that works in the future. So I thought that was an interesting thing. I also thought there was a comment about bike lockers being placed. That kind of resonated with me just because, again, I live in West Park. The implementation plan that you have here obviously shows one bus leg getting kind of sort of up into West Park. But if I was ever to take that bus, it's a little bit too far to walk and would be perfect to park a bike and then jump on the bus. So I thought that was an interesting comment, to just make sure that there's bike lockers, especially at these fringe end zones, where I think that would really facilitate the plan better. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Probst.
Thank you for the presentation. No questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Radford.
Thank you for your presentation. I did actually request the hard copy because, and it took me a few times and I did doze off a few times.
I'm sorry about that.
I knew that you would articulate and hit the points like you did the last time you were here, and that really made me feel better about it, especially the parts I didn't really understand. I thought you did a good job bringing it in layman's terms for folks like myself. I also liked the comments. I thought very good points of view. Having Mike here is like having an additional staffer. As well as some of the other comments. I really liked some of the things that were brought up with it. The part that I was really having trouble with was the increased cost.
Yeah.
And I believe you said it was 9 or 10%. The first year was covered by a grant.
No.
So
Continue, please.
Is
Sorry.
there? I guess this would probably be a question more for staff. Is it going to come out of our general fund? The additional 9 cents. Were we factoring in maybe Measure B passing? Is it another sales tax potentially? Because there's 10 years here that and I know it's a floating target, but those were some financial questions I didn't want to go upside down with.
Yeah. No, they're good questions. There won't be any general funds used. It's our local transportation funds that will be used as part of this. And what Raul was touching on is that we have a transit contract in place right now with MV Transit that's 7 years ago that we got in. We had a 5-year contract with a couple options. During that time, inflation, costs have gone quite a bit up, right? So what we were saying there is that our contract expires in the end of June of next year. So we're going out tomorrow, the RFP is going out for another contract that'll start at that point. And we're saying regardless of what we do, we're expecting significant increases just because costs over especially the last couple of years, have gone up significantly. So we're anticipating the additional costs, but through all that, it'll just be local transportation funds that will be used to pay for that.
Yeah, and I've seen tables like this before, and it's, my day job is when you have a pension fund that goes into the red, you get a preferred, any default schedule, so this would obviously be the premium services. One caveat that I heard mentioned throughout, this is a flexible plan, there's tangible for you. I really like that you guys are gonna come back to us and say, this is working, this isn't, burn the ships, we're done, we're gonna try something else. That's important, and just so everyone understands, we recommend this if we recommend it tonight, and we move it on to our city council, who you guys elect, and then they decide whether they approve it or not. But that's really the resolve that helped me here, because I saw that 10-year, I was like, that's a long time to be approving, a 9 to 10% increase per year. But again, very good report. I love the idea. I really liked how you connected the dots, and I like the feedback tonight. So I'm curious to hear what my colleagues found about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Bell?
Yeah, I have a couple questions and comments, but I guess piggybacking off of this statement, I was actually impressed that the preferred service plan was something like $200,000 a year more than the constrained.
Yeah.
So you're not saying, hey, let's go wild and spend a bunch of money. I think you're maybe $1,500 or $1,800, whatever. $1.8 million less annually than your unconstrained plan, which is just like, let's spend all that money. So I thought that was really good. Like, it exhibited like financial restraint, but also trying to drive to a service that works for the city. I guess one of my first questions was, we talked a bit about Rapid Link and here and there, and do we have a fare number for that? How does that compare to our commuter fares? Are we going to be poaching our commuter ridership for Rapid Link? I'm not sure if that's something that staff or like Roseville sets, or is that something that's set by PCTPA?
No, we would work with PCTPA to set the cost, and we haven't figured that out yet.
Okay, great.
I wouldn't worry about poaching, though. I think it's going to be two different kind of segments, especially when you look at Taylor and Mahaney going straight to Sacramento. Rapid Link would actually take a good 18, 20 minutes longer to get to those ultimate destinations.
Got it. Okay. We heard a lot of feedback at other meetings, public meetings, and we heard some great public comments today. I believe at the end of our last commission meeting, you were talking about how we might go back and look at some changes coming out of that. Do you have like maybe a quick summary of what changed because of public comment?
Sure. Would it be okay if I bring up route maps, or do you want me to just talk off the top of my head?
Yeah, you can bring up the route maps.
Okay. Every route changed as a result of public comments, whether some were minor because of budgetary constraints or some were significant because we wanted to find better areas, better ways to service, the better ways to service the general area. Would it be okay if we get the presentation up really quickly? And in talking about route maps, the goal in the document was to actually show the general network. Our goal after today was to put the route maps onto the project website where people provided comments on already, so everyone can go through them in detail. I think it's a lot harder if you look at the micro, each individual route, rather than the macro network when you're looking at the kind of work we've done. Next slide, please. So this is Route 1. This is really a replacement for your Route M. This route was a bit longer and going more into West Park, but what we found was there was segments of Pleasant Grove that we received feedback on that were not going to be served with our original plan. So this route was redesigned to get service back onto Pleasant Grove and then connect directly to Sutter. It's a much quicker route than what we had originally, and it doesn't meander. So that was directly out of public feedback. Next slide, please. Route 2, unfortunately, this is not a route that out of public feedback we receive responses, but out of budgetary constraints. We did have this as an every 30-minute route, as Mr. Barnbaum had recommended. It was our recommendation too, but It was an additional about $450,000 a year to get this there, and the ridership levels didn't exactly support it. One of the nice things we're able to do with this route, though, is we're able to get to the library and provide direct service to the city civic center. So this route isn't providing as much service, but it is providing some much needed connections. Next route, please. Route 3, not much change here other than that bottom loop. We found that the Civic Center section, based on our comments that we received, wasn't adequately served, and so we redid that bottom loop to better serve that area. Next route, please. This route was completely redesigned, absolutely completely from the ground up rebuilt. I actually don't even remember what our original Route 4 was at this point, but the goal was we weren't able to provide that direct connection to Kaiser Riverside. This route does that. We were not able to service a transfer point. This route does that now. We wanted to get down to Lewis and Orlando better. This route does that now. We wanted to get over the apartments on the eastern edge of that route. This route does that. What this route also does is it is a long route. We really tried to stop routes from meandering, but we needed to do that. This route is now, we look at it as 2 segments, and we were just looking at ridership this afternoon. There's a southern segment of this route that's going to carry folks, and there's a northern segment of this route that's going to carry folks. It's going to take 3 vehicles. It's going to operate every 30 minutes. It will probably be your most productive route based upon these changes, and this is honestly directly out of public feedback. Next route, please. This comes directly, and I really want to thank the Santucci Justice Center folks. They were so accommodating with us and so informative and helped us get so much data to understand how people who visit and people who go to the Justice Center, people who work at the Justice Center use the service or don't use the service. So we really wanted to get all-day service up there. And so, again, directly out of public feedback. The other thing is that section along Fairway, right now you only serve the southern section of Fairway. This route connects the dots and provides a lot of connection to shopping, and this came out directly out of the public meetings that we had. Next slide. This is essentially the same route you have today, so no really big comments here. Next slide, please. Tons of comment on commuter service. So the Maley office complex, which is in that northwestern section of downtown Sacramento, is a brand new development. We received so much public feedback of needing service there. What we were trying to figure out is, okay, how do we serve that area without delaying existing route passengers? How do we make that loop without delaying existing service passengers? And if you know today, the northbound and southbound loops are different. So we wanted to unify that. Again, all of that came out of public comment, and this was redone to accommodate that. And frankly, we actually received some savings, about $100,000, $120,000 a year from some of these changes. And that should be it. All of these route maps will be published on the website. Hopefully that was quick enough.
Yeah, no, that was great. I guess I'd really applaud you and staff for, the city takes public comment seriously, so like reacting to what you're hearing and pivoting is, exactly why the city is involving the community so much. I think the 30-minute frequency is fantastic. Frequency is like a gate at the bottom of your driveway. You're only allowed to drive out only once every 30 minutes, so you got to make it count. So in that case, what ideas do we have to speed up the buses? Yeah. So, if you only get out every 30 minutes, let's get there on time. And then to that, do we have the right, do we have transfer reliability goals? If you're going to transfer more, how often? How are we going to make sure they work?
Yeah. Great question. So let's talk about Aero and local at the same time here, because there's going to be some transfer happening there. First of all, one of the reasons why people can't book an Aero today is because the trips are so long. There are no vehicles available. It's not just a staffing issue. It's that vehicles aren't available because the vehicle is across the zone and not ready to come back. The zonal structure will mitigate that and eliminate that for the vast majority of folks. Transferring from Aero to fixed route is also a critical component of this plan. So that requires fare capping with contactless payment, and it also requires technology that allows the on-demand vehicles to know where the fixed route vehicles are, and vice versa. So that transfer to and from works. We've already talked to the provider of the service of the on-demand technology, and they gave us a very expensive quote of $1,296, not per year even, to do that. We've put into the bid that's going out tomorrow a requirement for the operators to provide hardware to support that software. So that's going to fix that transfer issue. From fixed route to fixed route transfer, there's still going to be, we don't believe that 40% transfer that's happening today, I don't think it's going to be that much. I still think it's going to be 20 to 25%. But where the transfers are occurring, we've actually created mini transfer zones where schedules match up with Arrow and local. So that way, with 30-minute frequency, you're not necessarily waiting from a 30 to a 60 other than route 2. But you're going to match these times up so that you should be able to transfer from one section to another section. The next step is placement of bus stops. We want to make sure that stops are placed so you're not walking in an L to get from one trip to another trip. You're just walking either across the street or waiting at the same stop. So it's a series of things, but we've thought through about 85% of them.
Fantastic. Just two more, Mr. Chair. There was a suggestion in the PCTPA COA to potentially pursue Joint Powers Authority, like JPA, with neighboring agencies to better coordinate services, like to Granite Bay or something like that. Is that something that's being considered, thought about? I mean, that wasn't in our it wasn't in our COA, but I was just interested in how maybe staff is thinking about that.
Let me talk about Granite Bay really quickly, and then I'll let you address the JPA. So Granite Bay, we had great coordination with PCTPA as part of their COA and our COA. We are including Granite Bay as part of Aero Zone 3. It'll service at a certain time of the day. We're working on the reciprocal service agreement with PCTPA for costing and things like that. So that is happening. You want to address the JPA piece?
Yeah, I don't know if there's much, I mean, we have very open lines of communication. We're working closer with Placer County Transit and PCTPA than we have done in many years. So I don't think we've talked about actually solidifying it with the JPA, but I know right now that what we are proposing is in step with what Placer County Transit's doing.
Thank you. And then on a slightly different topic, you discussed barriers to transit, like cul-de-sacs, major sound walls. How does staff and the city think about that, and how can we influence? Can that be influenced in development patterns going forward? West Roseville is still developing. How can you make it a more transit-friendly place if possible?
It absolutely has to be. Land use patterns and planning that goes into land use patterns. We really need to think about sustainable modes of transportation, not just transit, but better ingress and egress, roundabouts instead of signals and things like that. This plan, hopefully what it does is it gives staff and the commission some ammunition to say, look, if we can just get this route to go a little bit faster, we can reduce travel time. We can make it easier for folks to get from point A to point B. My ultimate hope is that you don't need four parking spaces per 100 square feet of retail space, right? Eventually, if you can get to some of these establishments easier using alternative modes of transportation, but it has to go hand in glove. And I believe if there's anything I can leave this commission with is that intention that economic development isn't just about building, it's about also getting people to those buildings.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you. I'm great, thank you.
All right, Mr.
Appreciate
George.
All right, I got a lot of notes. Let me see if I can find some.
I might need some water.
Yeah. Couple of questions to try to help, hopefully answer some questions. I know that there's discussed 40 new shelters. Is one of those shelters possibly at Pleasant Grove and Foothills, or do we know that? Because I know exactly where that's at, and that place it's brutal when the weather's not great.
Yeah, we don't know that yet, but it is on our list. We're just waiting to see what comes out of the COA.
And then as electric bikes become a thing and they do have these monster tires on them, do we know if these new electric buses have larger bike racks on them, or is that another maybe?
Issue more than a tire issue.
Oh, okay.
So those bike racks, and it's also a length issue. So the 40-foot buses by DOT standards can only be certain amount wider. And the bike racks can usually only accommodate about 100 pounds. And unfortunately, the fat tire electric bikes run 55, 60, 70 pounds. So that is usually more of the barrier than the accessibility to a bike rack. I don't want to poo-poo it. I think it's a great idea. I ride an e-bike myself, but...
And then, thank you for writing that giant novel. So, you apologize to us. I apologize that you had to write something that long, because reading's much easier than writing in my book. So in there was a section about transit effectiveness index, and it said we were at like a 5.17. With the shorter routes, what do you think is an acceptable number for us to be at, and how long with this plan do you think it may take us to get there? I mean, it looks like we're hoping for 5 years to have 25% more ridership.
Right.
So, is it 5 years? Is it 3 years? Can you explain that a little bit to us?
I think based on the implementation plan, we remodeled transit effectiveness and we doubled it within the first 24 months. So we were at almost 10 by using just the plan that we proposed here. Now, what does that mean? That means that more people have access, the trips are shorter, the service is more convenient, that kind of thing. I think that in those 24 months, there's a lot of things that the commission and the council can do to improve access, be it shelters, be it better land use planning. So I think if you just look at transit on an island, you're never going to get to 100. Which is no one is at 100. But can you double and triple and quadruple that number? Yeah, I think you can. That transit on an island, 5 to 7 years without issue.
And then, is there a reason for the? I know it was brought up as well for the single rider non-resident to not be included in the commuter.
So we looked at the total number of non-resident fares and passes that were purchased and the cost of it. It is kind of an old vestigial fare, and it was just yet another barrier to get rid of. That doesn't mean that non-resident riders can't use the service. It just means they get a bit of a discount.
And 2 more.
Yes.
If you are using Aero as an ADA rider, are you still do you have to stay in the zones too, or is that expanded? Like they can, if you're ADA, you can go anywhere, correct? I think that's what I read.
Yeah, nothing. If you're an ADA customer, not only does nothing change for you, an ADA Aero customer, not only does nothing change for you, you actually we have proposed a dedicated fleet for Aero. So all folks who are Aero ADA customers won't have to have both non-Aero, non-ADA and ADA together. It would just be for ADA customers.
And there would be no zones.
There would be no zones. Nothing changes. Sorry.
Just like it is today.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Is that water open?
No, there's water for you if you want.
Sorry, I'm dying.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple things. So Game Day Express, was there any conversation about having it start and stop at Galleria?
The Rapid Link, I'm sorry?
Wasn't it Game Day Express?
Oh, Game Day Express. I apologize. I didn't hear the first part. There wasn't. The question would be, it wouldn't be that difficult to do to get Game Day Express to the Galleria. I don't know the history of why it started at downtown.
Yeah, I don't think we've had that discussion. I think the comment made earlier was more when there was a third track in, and then you had the option of either taking Game Day or taking Amtrak to the Sac Valley station.
So what went into determining where Game Day Express is going to be picked up and dropped off?
So just probably in large part to the new parking structures.
Okay.
And more availability. Certainly the Galleria has a nice parking lot, but with the new parking structures, I think we wanted to utilize that and keep it kind of Roseville-centric. originally. And again, that could possibly change in the future.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that just using the parking structure would be a priority to determine the location of that. Is there a comment on that?
If I may, you know, a lot of what decisions we made at Roseville over the past couple decades have been to really help the downtown stay alive. And so bringing people downtown to ride game day, they may have dinner here, visit one of the shops before they get on the bus. So I think it was a combination of commerce and having the parking garages made it easy for them to park. We only have a limited number of spaces actually at the Galleria for commuters. So
That's what my next comment was going to be about, or question.
so it really was the best spot. That doesn't mean we can't change it if things change. Like if it becomes competition with the Amtrak, we could definitely look at moving it out there. We may need to get more spots out of the Galleria for that situation, and they'd be evening spots, so they may be willing to do that.
Yeah, I would imagine there would need to be a lot of conversation to be had about the fact that it's private property and
Yeah.
how you're introducing city services.
Westfield's
and
not
everything
fun to work with when it comes to parking either.
else. Yeah, so there's a lot to be navigated through for that. Okay. All right, and then also, the intent for Game Day Express. Now, the people that I know that have used it drive over here, park, and then take the bus over. Is that essentially the process that it's intended for?
Well,
Or
I
are
think
we-
that's the reality for today because the services weren't exactly fast enough. The services that terminate in downtown are running at 60 minutes by and large, and Arrow is a long wait. So my hope is that with these new services, we've actually designed 2 routes to circulate in downtown as well. So my hope, and one will run every 30 minutes, my hope is that we can actually spur ridership into downtown. People can hang out in downtown, go to a local bar, and then take Game Day Express from there. The one thing to think about is that I believe it's 1 bus dedicated to Game Day Express per game, and you're at about 17 to 18 riders or so. So it's about 40% full today. So adding a whole nother service, a whole nother vehicle would actually come at cost. Because at $3 a passenger, $3.25 a passenger, you're still losing a bit of money on that trip.
Okay, perfect. And another question, so what times do the buses drop off at Santucci Center? Do you happen to know?
Yeah, so right now, they actually get there a little bit after Santucci, the Justice Center starts. We did a survey of when people wanted to get there, and everyone, the lion's share said before 8. So we actually, the Route 5 will get to Santucci before 8.
Okay.
So
All right, good.
it'll start there too.
Okay, what's the last, or since you know that one, is there another one that drops off right around noontime?
It'll be all day. That's the Route 5 will be an all-day service from Santucci. So
30
right,
minutes
yeah,
type of thing?
every 30 minutes. And I mean, right now I think it's 4 trips total. It'll be tripled.
So people just have to essentially get to the Galleria.
Yep.
If they're South Placer County area, and then it'll get them up there.
Exactly.
Any idea how long it typically takes to get from the Galleria to Santucci?
I think we measured that actually. I think it was like 14 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
And the last trip, so the nice thing about that service is while the 5 will run till 7:30, it'll go until Santucci closes. And on weekends, we're going to repurpose that trip to actually provide better shopping service along Fairway. So it actually is going to provide double benefit for the city.
Okay. So does it go up Fairway and then turn left on Blue Oaks?
Yes.
Right before
And
it
then
hits
right up.
Century?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, got it. Okay, that's all I have. Does anybody else have any comments, questions, or anything left? Okay. All right, so this is an action item. We do take a vote on that. And so can I get a motion and a second to accept the Roseville Transit?
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Transit Comprehensive Operational Analysis as given by Mr. Kumar at Innovate Mobility and clarified by staff.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Radford and a second,
Seconded.
and second by Mr. Pell. And so the vote is all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing any, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Another round of water.
Okay, the next item that we have is 6.3 transportation update. This is information only, no action is needed. Staff, can we have your presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Suzanne Engelke, Associate Transportation Planner for the City of Roseville, and I'm here tonight to update you on transportation activities happening in our division. The Alternative Transportation Division has been working with Alta Planning since October of 2023 on creating an active transportation plan to design a bike and pedestrian network in Roseville. Because public feedback is vital in creating a safe and well-connected system, staff have hosted 18 outreach events and 2 open houses to gather input. A Transportation 360 webpage, social media postings, and an online newsletter have advertised how the public can give input. KCRA even did a news segment on it this fall. A popular way to show suggestions was through an online interactive map. Respondents could draw in possible facilities or routes and make comments alongside them. The map gathered several thousand responses during the nearly 3 months it was available. Those responses were then used to make a draft bike and pedestrian network map. The second map was available online this fall and gathered another 400 comments. Our consultants are currently sifting through these comments and meeting with city staff and a technical advisory committee to compile the final plan. The final plan will go through another round of outreach opportunities, and it is estimated to go to the Transportation Commission in early 2025 and to the City Council for adoption in the spring. The American River Bike Patrol, or ARBP, serves as trail ambassadors, providing directional, mechanical, and medical assistance for trail users. They were here about this time last year talking to you about what they do. They ride our Miners Ravine Trail and Pleasant Grove Creek trails. 30 volunteers have given 322 hours to travel our trails, which is nearly 2,000 miles is what they have done for us. They have provided 316 assists, which entailed providing directions, explaining who they were, and sharing trail advice. Most of our 18 repairs had to do with the bike chain coming loose, and there have been a few abrasions needing attention and 3 heat exposure cases in August. Imagine the timing for that. This group also serves as eyes on the trail and alerts staff when they see trail damage. We are thankful to the American River Bike Patrol for the services they have provided to our community this past year. The Dry Creek Greenway Multi-Use Trail is a vital component of the City of Roseville trail system because it will provide a safe, comfortable, convenient, and highly connected trail as an alternative to using city streets in an area that is underserved by active transportation options. Phase 1 will construct 2 miles in length from Darling Way to Rocky Ridge. This new trail will feature a trailhead with a parking lot and comfort station at Riverside Avenue. The trail will feature 3 new bridges like the one shown there and a harvest gold color that matches the natural surroundings. It will also provide an undercrossing of I-80 shown on the left. Other amenities will include exercise equipment, benches, trash and pet waste receptacles, wayfinding signs, and more. The contractor recently paved a section of trail and plans to continue paving this week as the weather allows. The estimated completion date is next fall. And just in case you were wondering, design has already started on Phase 2. My last slide of the evening is about our Safe Routes to School program. The Safe Routes to School program has been actively promoting bike, and pedestrian safety with students. We have hired an additional 6 substitute school crossing guards, revised our drop and walk locations to alleviate traffic around the schools, and worked with principals on crosswalk locations at schools. This fall, the alternative transportation staff and our bike walk ambassadors promoted helmet safety by passing out incentives at 5 schools to students who were correctly wearing a helmet on their travels. This will continue at other schools throughout the year to encourage students to protect their brains. 5 schools participated in the National Walk to School Day in October, and our staff were on hand to distribute goodies to participants. In November, Diamond Creek and Westbrook Elementary Schools took part in the National Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Alternative transportation staff have presented bike and ped safety assemblies at elementary schools and are tailoring the material to present to middle and high schools later in the school year. And lastly, for National Pedestrian Month in October, the alternative staff tried something new, and they dressed in costumes and led seniors from Escaton Village in a safety walk from their neighborhood to a shopping center and back. Staff gave tips on pedestrian safety while handing out treats along the route.
No pictures of that?
I like my job too much to provide the pictures, but I do have some. That's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
Suzanne. So at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the commission on this item? If you'd like to come to the podium, you'll have 5 minutes. Please address the commission.
I thought you were going to put in a picture.
Excellent job.
Thank you. Didn't even get to the button here. So, anybody else from the public that would like to make a comment about this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll start with the commission. Mr. McGeorge.
I'm very excited for that new bike trail. So I just saw the bridge the other day when I was driving down Riverside. So it's been a big gap in everything per se for this side of town, I feel like. So excited to see how that turns out. Other than that, great presentation. Glad the American River Bike Patrol is doing well. And the bike and pedestrian map, I think, with all the trails and stuff, it's going to be cool to see how it's updated from the last one that we used to have that's, I think, several years old. So thank you very much.
Very good. Mr. Bell?
Yeah, thank you for your report. It was, a lot's going on. It's great to see. I guess on the Dry Creek Greenway East Trail, super excited. It's going to be a vital connection under the freeway. There are big barriers. Kudos to staff. Those, I think the Darling Way bridge got shut down. I think not related to this project, but there was a critical connection to the neighborhood that I think staff worked really hard on getting reopened quickly. So awesome job there. On the active transportation plan, I think the proposal to have class 4 bikeways like on all the major arterials could be a game changer for getting around the city, not inside a car. Pairing well with this proposed COA, proposed redo of the bus system. I think there's great public input on that map. The mapping software I thought was fairly intuitive, and it was fantastic to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we go from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Radford?
Great job all around by staff. Thank you. I mean, I hate to echo what everyone else is saying, but Mr. Freitas, again, he's correct there. I also want to commend you something that didn't get talked about tonight. We pushed back the holiday parade, which those of us been around a while, we call it the Sylvia Basana holiday parade. Thank you for moving that back to December. I don't know if that was just default, but my kids, who are the ultimate critics on these things, the parks, this needs adjusted, I'd be remiss if I didn't echo their gratitude on that. And then I think the turkey trot's coming up. I'm getting bugged to do that, so I might just more chauffeur my family there and pick them up when they're done, but I believe that's next week as well, on Thanksgiving morning. Looking forward to those events.
Okay. Mr. Probst?
Thank you. No comments.
And Mr. Roberts?
Thank you for the update. The only thing that I wanted to say or ask is if I was somebody looking for more information for a lot of all these different events, or informational sessions or things that we're having here at the City of Roseville, where could I find when those are and more information on them?
For our outreach activities, you could go to the Transportation 360 page. For other bike trail-related things, you would go to the Trails page on our city website. And then for the events, like Commissioner Radford was talking about, the Parks Department would list it on our city website. I would like to put a plug in, though, since people were talking about
part
it.
of my comment.
We do have a Walk, Bike, and Roll newsletter that is an e-blast that goes out. So please sign up for it. You can go to the city website and you can sign up for a myriad of all kinds of different newsletters. But I prefer the Walk, Bike, Roll newsletter.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay. Very, very nice. Nothing to continue to echo up here that hasn't already been said, but we appreciate it, Suzanne. Thank you so much. All right, so we'll move on to the last, or one of the last items, staff and commission report. Staff, do you have any informational items or updates to report?
I just wanted to mention something real quick.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully this is appropriate, Mike, but it actually relates to the last item. To find information like on trails, we have some what they're called vanity websites. So basically, if you put in roseville.ca.us/trails, it'll take you right to the trails page to make it a little easier to find. That's all.
Very nice. Mr. Schofield.
Yeah, if I could, I just wanted to quickly just recognize my staff here. Suzanne, which you see, I mean, infectious. She's great. She's our trails guru. See Rich out here with transit. I mean, he was one of the best hires we've made in the alternative transportation team. I mean, there's nobody that knows our system better than Rich. And then I also wanted to recognize Zach Presley. He's our assistant transportation planner. You haven't seen him as much, but Zach is, among other things, he's our money guy. He's the finance guy. We have, as you can imagine, a significant amount of different types of funding, grants, and it's really falls on Zach to look at that stuff, make sure we're spending the money correctly. And he's also our straight face guy as far as when we're running by different scenarios. And he's the one going, I don't think, we're not going to be spending that much money. And anyways, I'm just fortunate to work with these three, and they're not always, all three of them aren't here at all these commission meetings. So I just want to take a moment to thank them for all that they do. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Suzanne, anything else? No? Okay. All right. So the commission, do you have any informational items to report?
I have one thing. Yes. I just wanted to bring up something that I saw on the Roseville websites that is related to transportation. There's an e-bike rebate program through Roseville Electric. So if you are a Roseville Electric customer, there are rebates available, I think between $300 and $600, and you'd have to check the website there, and that's for Roseville Electric customers. But I think that's, great. Electric bikes are a transformational thing, when used appropriately and safely. I just want to make the public aware of that. Thanks.
Anything else? No? Okay. So I just have a couple things to pass on. So obviously Measure B did not pass. I say unfortunately, because what's going to happen, we're going to notice traffic continue to build on Highway 65 specifically. And so I have a feeling that may affect more of some of the perception of timeliness issues for the bus route system. It just goes to say, or goes to reasonable thought that that's what's going to happen if we put more vehicles on the road. With West Park being built up, Fitment, some of the areas in Lincoln as well. So that could have an impact on some of the timeliness. So people should be aware that Measure B does have consequences, and I'm not sure when that's going to come back around. 2 years, 4 years, whatever it may be, but we'll see. And so that's all I have. Anybody else have anything else? No? All right. So we'll move on to adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Bell, motion. Mr. Radford, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you so much.